I'm not completely sure when my passion for photography started. I remember when I was in elementary school, I had a math tutor, and I was going to her home to take classes. And she had hanging on the wall a picture that her son took. It was a black and white image of a bench and a light taken at the park I used to play when I was a kid. And I remember the gray tones and the light and the shape of the bench and the perspective, and it impressed me much. And I decided that I would like to do photography at that point. I was very young though. It took a long time until I got my first single lens reflex camera, an SLR, a Pentax AME Super, which I started taking pictures around 1980s with. And I remember going to the library and getting all the books that I could find on photography. And one of my great findings and what really triggered the passion of me doing landscapes was books by Ansel and especially his black and white images of the southwest of the United States. Those stark landscapes, mainly barren but beautiful. Those gray tones, the shadows and the sunsets, beautiful images of that I would eventually get to visit those places, basically lured by those books, and I would study further his method of exposure, the sound system, and it was great to embark on this journey. I was doing film, and for many years I was developing the black and white film, and I was sending for processing the color. But eventually, when the digital came, I moved into digital. My first camera was 1.5 megapixels. I think it was a Fuji, very tiny camera, and it was fascinating to be able to see immediately what we capture after pressing the shutter. I had been following the technology even before these cameras were available, and I was looking forward to have one of them. But eventually what happened is that as I was doing digital a lot, I moved through different cameras, evolving. I think my first camera, as I said, was 1.5 megapixel. Then I have a 6 megapixel SLR. That was my first SLR. It was a Canon with interchangeable lenses, digital 6 megapixels. Then my next model was a Canon 10 megapixels, then a Canon 20 megapixels, and eventually I got a medium format digital camera, Pentax 645C, 51 megapixels, with a sensor larger than full frame. And from then on, I got other digital cameras, Sony, Leica, but I was feeling again the lure to go back to film. Now those medium format cameras that use medium format film were more accessible. Some of them that used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, you could get for only, a very small amount of money. So I moved I started buying film cameras and processing the film myself, scanning the images. Eventually I got to a higher level film scanner. But there was a moment in which I decided to take the big step, which is to move into large format photography, which is the king of the formats. I have this camera here, which is it can take 8 by 10 inches plates. And I got several of these cameras. Some of them, this is a studio one, this I wouldn't take into the field, but I have lighter ones, 8 by 10 and 4 by 5 inches formats that I take into the field, and I take pictures with them. And let me tell you, when I scan those images, the resolution is amazing. It's beyond anything we have today in digital. One of the things I found out when I started doing large format photography is that it's a very involved process. So the camera is just a box that holds a lens, and behind it holds the film. And so everything has to be done manually. So we have to, first of all, find the suitable subject, compose the image, measure the light, to make sure we have the right exposure, select the proper lens, mount the film. There is a dark side that has to be removed before taking the picture. So many considerations that I call all this process is like a dance. You have to do it exactly with the right steps. Anything that you do wrong, you may not have a picture at the end. And just imagine you carry a very heavy camera with you into the wild. You took the time to find an image that you would like to capture, and then if you cannot get that image, it would be very frustrating. So what I realized is that while I was doing all this process of composing and all the steps to take the picture, it was like being in meditation. The mind didn't have any room to do anything else but to focus on capturing that image and taking the right steps. Not very much, I would say very much like a Buddhist Zen meditation. It was basically bringing the mind into calm and peace in order to create a composition. And I found that process fascinating. It didn't bother me that I had to take so many steps or that the camera was so heavy. Once I had the camera pointed to the subject and I started doing all the process of taking the image, I was in my own world. And I still do that, and I still fascinated by that process. However, I must say I still do digital photography. I still use digital cameras, and recently I have started using digital monochromatic cameras. I have a Leica camera which can only take images in black and white, which creates something very similar to film. The only difference is that we can do that very fast. Okay, we don't have to take a lot of time to set up the image. But there is a room for both technologies. In film there is also the doubt, the mystery, that until we get home and develop that film, we would not know if we really capture any image or if we capture what we saw. Something that we can corroborate very easily in a digital camera. So depending on the circumstances, everything has its place, depending on the time that we have, the circumstances. So I find all types of photography rewarding, and the chemical process of developing the film is fascinating too. I have designed machines to process the film that make the process very reliable, and I never stop being fascinated by all this. So the question is, why do we take pictures, or why do I take pictures? What is in it? Why this fascination with capturing something that I see? In a paper that I wrote a long time ago, I talk about being like an artist existential statement. I say that I exist, therefore I can capture an image and share it, and other people seeing it is a corroboration of my existence. However, I think also that it's a way in which I communicate. I'm fascinated by the idea of sharing with others what I saw and the way I saw it. Because every image that I capture invokes in me a feeling, a perception of reality. And the way I perceive it, I feel the impulse to share it. I think as humans, we are communication beings. We like to share our ideas, our conversations, and see what other people think, and also learn from other people. How do they see the world? What are their opinions? And also see the way they perceive nature. I must say that I have reverence for the beauty of nature, for life, and also I enjoy being outside under the infinite sky, walking around, discovering things, and then capturing them to share them with my friends, my family. I never stop feeling that. We can call it the need to share what I see and what I perceive. And I think that's the main answer to the question of the why the pictures. It's one of the ways in which I communicate, and it's a way in which I find myself conveying the way I see the world. And now, what I thought is I would like to show you some of the cameras that I use. How do I use them? Very briefly, but also to mention that there is a fascination that I have with the camera itself, because the camera is the instrument I use to capture the images. But the mechanics, the precision of the camera, each camera when I hold it in my hand, inspire me in a different way. So I would like to talk a little bit about the camera and show you some of the cameras that I use, how they are used, and how do they capture light. And on that note of talking about the cameras, here in my hand I hold in the first camera that I had with interchangeable lenses, a Pentax ME super excellent camera, very compact, and with this I took my first pictures, and some of them I processed myself, some of them I had them processed. But the advantage of this camera compared to other cameras is that you can remove the lens and put other lenses, which allows you to change your point of view, get closer to subjects, or use wide-angle lenses to cover landscapes, etc. And this camera still works perfectly well, and occasionally I still use it and process the film myself. Okay, and here we have something a little bit more sophisticated, you want to say expensive and solid, which is a Leica. Interchangeable lenses is a Leica R8, this is a reflex Leica camera, which is an excellent machine. And I haven't shown using for many years, and I still use a camera that, as I said, as there is a fascination in me about the mechanics. It's extremely precise, solid, and reliable. Actually, shutter can reach 1/8000 of a second, which is a very high speed, and it uses 35mm film. So this is a beauty of a camera, and I still use it, and it's part of my collection. So I collect the cameras, but I use them too. It's not just a collection, just to look at them. All the cameras that I have in my collection, I used, or I have used. Okay, and now I'm moving on into the medium format film, which is a film that is wider than the 35mm. It has a 66 centimeters wide, and I have this camera. This is what is called a twin lens reflex, because it has two lenses. And reflex is because you can see through a mirror through a top lens, but actually the lens that takes the image is the bottom one. And this produces negative 6 by 6 centimeters. It has bellows to focus, and the resolution is much higher than on a 35mm film. In order to take a picture in this camera, you open the top like this, and you look, and you put it at your waist level, and you can compose your image, focus and compose your image. And again, this produces a square format. And this is a beautiful machine. It's a little bit heavy, but it produces excellent images. Okay, and now I would like to show one of my favorite cameras, a little bit on the heavy side. This is a Hasselblad 500 CM, which is basically the same model the astronauts took to the moon in all Apollo missions. The cameras were left there, only the films were brought back. And this camera withstood to be outside the spacecraft on the surface of the moon, and took fantastic pictures that today have incredible resolution. And this camera is one of my favorite ones. I use it frequently, and also takes square pictures, 6 by 6 centimeters, the negative. And you basically look through here and you see through the taking lens. So it's a single lens reflex. You see exactly what the lens see. And it's a modular camera. You can interchange the lenses. You can interchange the backs to use different film types. and it comes all apart and is fully mechanical. There is no electronics. It's heavy, solid, beautifully made in Sweden. Okay, and here I share with you another medium format beautiful camera. This is a Pentax 6x7, of which I have two different bodies. This is an older generation. And this camera takes 6x7, so it's a rectangular format. But it looks very much like a regular reflex camera. As you see, it has a fixed back, interchangeable lenses, very, very solid machine, and very good, still producing excellent images. I'm using a newer model of this one actually, and this one I have in exhibition, but it's basically the same as this one with more electronics. And this is another one of the cameras that I really love and enjoy using. Another interesting type of cameras were cameras that are called folders or foldable, because they fold and they become very compact. For example, this camera, which is a Voigtlander VESA, it takes 6x9 centimeter negatives, which is quite large, but as you see, it's very compact. It almost will fit in a pocket, well, almost. And then in order to take the picture, you basically press a button and you open the front, and then you have the lens coming out on the bellows, and so the whole optical path is folded, and you can carry this camera, which is relatively light, much lighter than what I showed you before, and take pictures in the field in a very large film format. A true beauty, and I had this restored to its original shape. It was in very good shape, but the bellows were already deteriorated, and they had to do a bellow transplant. Basically, we transplanted the bellows from another one of these cameras that wasn't working, and now it's in perfect working condition. I also wanted to share with you some of my unusual cameras that I have in my collection. This is the oldest camera that I have. This is a Verascope. Was designed by Jules Richard. It's from the late 1800s. It's all made of brass. And amazing enough, it can take 3D images. So it will capture through these two lenses, two images simultaneously with a distance between. And then with the viewer, you can see the image in 3D. And that was very popular in the early 1900s, late 1800s. People was fascinated by being able to see in 3 dimensions. This camera is completely solid, it's solid brass. And I must tell you, it has bubble levels. The bubble levels have not dried up, and the camera works. The shutter and everything works, and it has never been maintained. So that shows you the quality in which some of these things were made. I was lucky to find this one in Eastern Europe. Somehow it has been kept in somebody's home in a box, and it was in perfect condition. Nothing had to be done to it. So continuing with the exhibit of the cameras that I use, I want to show you this camera. It's a Mamiya Universal. This camera was used a lot by the news in the 50s, 60s. It's a very solid camera, and it has interchangeable backs and interchangeable lenses. Absolutely reliable, solid, heavy, a workhorse. And I still use this camera, and it works very well. I did some adjustments to it, and after the adjustments, it focused perfectly on infinity, and it works perfectly well. Here I have an extra viewfinder, which is for the DC lens, which is extreme wide angle. You don't see through the lens here, you focus through this rangefinder, and then you take the picture. And it's a matter of processing the film. And now I would like to show you the king of the formats. This is a large format 8x10 camera. This camera has interchangeable lenses, bellows that can extend to accommodate different focal lengths, and it takes pictures on single plates of film, which are 8x10 inches in size. They're huge. And this is a studio unit. I have other units that use the same film that you can carry into the field, and they're foldable. This unit here, I'm going to show you the lateral view, And as you can see, you can appreciate the bellows. In this case, they are partially extended. And then in the back there is the film plane where you insert the film. You actually compose the image by looking into the ground glass in the back, and you see the image upside down while you compose. Now, through the years, I have used this camera so much that when I see the image upside down, I actually see it straight, believe it or not. I would be confused if the image was actually straight when I look through the ground glass. So here you can appreciate the back of the camera. This is the ground glass where you focus, and also here is where you insert the film. The film comes in a film holder that you insert here, keeps the film light tight until you remove the blind that covers the film. And in order to do it, you basically open this and slide the film holder inside. This camera has a lot of adjustments, so you can adjust the position of the front, the back, to correct for perspective, for greater magnification, etc. And now, near the end, I wanted to thank everybody that took the time to watch this movie, and I would leave you with a short slideshow of some of my favorite images.